Welcome to the instruction manual. Today we're posing a question to all the math teachers joining our channel. What if your students are terrible at math? Or have you ever had someone tell you they are really good at English and writing? Therefore, they don't have high math skills. There are scores of people who truly believe that they are not wired for any level of math like calculus or even working with fractions. Strange as it might sound, the people who believe this could actually be right. Our first session on the schedule will take a deep dive into traditional classroom lessons and modeling. Next, we will introduce Mr. Howard Gardiner and his famous theory of multiple intelligences. From there, we will explore self-motivated classroom techniques and how they will be used to implement Gardiner's theory. We will also create classroom environments that are user-friendly for teachers in kindergarten and elementary classrooms. And lastly, we will learn how to create a flexible schedule to make assessments. Looks like we'll be busy today, so let's get started. But before the bell rings, click the like and subscribe buttons to join the channel. And don't forget to leave a comment down below if you'd like tips, tricks, and time-saving ways to plan for your own classroom. Let's all imagine a typical day in secondary level math. A set of equations or sums are assigned to be worked on in class or for homework. After the allotted assignment time, a teacher will go over equations or proofs on the board to model corrections for the students. Next, the teacher will then introduce and model the next lesson scheduled within the unit. Student A raises her hand often and almost always gives the correct answer when called upon. Student B- catches their mistakes and is comfortable with asking the teacher for clarification. Student C only does half of the assignment and spends the rest of the time talking to classmates sitting closest to her. Student D sits in the back of the room. He rarely turns assignments in and has performed poorly on all of his tests and quizzes. Student D feels like he is bad at math and so relies on his grades in other classes to push up his grade point average. More importantly, he expects that our math teacher will not be able to effectively teach the lesson in a way that he will understand. So he has completely given up on trying to improve his grade. Our math teacher is obligated to move on to the next unit lesson, despite how students perform in the class. But does that mean that it is too late for student D? Can we still make the effort to improve his grade level? At this point, it is easy for students to internalize their lack of comprehension as a personal flaw. They label themselves as being bad at math. But what if these students are correct? What if they aren't specifically wired to learn math through traditional methods? Meet Howard Gardiner. Howard presented his theory of multiple intelligences in his book, Frames of Mind. His theory posits that there are different types of human intelligences. Each individual person possesses an intelligence type that allows them to succeed in certain learning environments and when performing certain tasks. A person's intelligence type distinguishes the way in which they succeed at learning and in applying what they have learned. These are the intelligence types from Gardiner's theory. Naturalistic intelligence, where a person thrives while being outside and learns to pick up information from cues given by plants, animals, and natural environments. Logical intelligence. These students can easily understand math, spot trends and patterns, and understands processes that involve order and sequence. Interpersonal intelligence, where a person has a highly developed understanding of emotions and is very good at reading into motives and sensing emotional cues from others. Verbal linguistic. This student can express themselves very well through written and spoken words. They usually do well on writing assignments. Interpersonal intelligence, a highly developed sense of self-awareness and the ability to understand what motivates them. This person can easily express why they feel a certain way about different experiences. Body kinesthetic. We all know the person that learns well while in motion. This person has a high level of dexterity and is most comfortable when moving objects or moving themselves. Musical intelligence allows a person to easily sense rhythm and sound patterns. They can also identify the source of specific sounds and tones. Visual spatial intelligence allows a person to render pictures and images in their minds without the need for visual aids. This can often translate to drawing or other related artistic skills. Take note of this. You'll often hear someone say that they are a visual learner, where they mean that a visual aid or picture is needed for them to comprehend something effectively. But this does not equate to having a visual intelligence type. In fact, if a person requires visual aids, then it is likely because they need support for having a different intelligence type, such as verbal, linguistic, or musical intelligence. So now let's imagine our math classroom again. Our teacher presents a proof for corrections. Student A has logical intelligence. She has an easy time understanding basic math instruction without the need for supplemental resources. Student B- has interpersonal intelligence. Once the teacher demonstrates the corrections on the board, this student can follow the process so long as visual aids are present and is comfortable enough to ask for help with mistakes. Student C has interpersonal intelligence and mainly relies on help from her friends and classmates by copying the answers before the assignment was due. She may need more time to finish assignments before classroom instruction starts. Student D has musical intelligence and is reliant on verbal linguistic communication to convey thoughts and ideas. It is easy to assume that anyone without a logical intelligence type may have a tough time understanding math instruction. But considering diverse intelligence types is only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to planning a curriculum that accommodates the unique needs of every student. Like most schoolwork, learning math can feel like a process that exists in a vacuum. Something that is done for its own sake that isn't attributed to any specific application. One way to respond to students with diverse intelligences is to create lesson plans that incorporate sensorial experiences into the modeling portion of the lesson. For example, students can gather materials and build a slide while studying the Pythagorean theorem and geometry. There are many other ways to use visual and sensorial experiences for math. Students can determine the orbital path of a comet and then adjust calculations to find what orbital path would cause the comet to hit Earth. Ask students to research wholesale cost of their favorite foods, then have them mark up the price of goods for inflation. They can also adjust prices in response to rates and competitor pricing. The point is to take math beyond a two-dimensional world of pencil and paper. Oftentimes, we as teachers believe that traditional modeling can go no further than our blackboards. Most people can understand math on two levels. The first level is understanding value. Students are taught to understand that numerals like 7 and 114 represent a specific amount. The second level of understanding is order and sequence. All math instruction comes down to following a series of steps to arrive at a solution. If we have 2 apples and want 5, then we have to add or place down 3 apples. If we add 15 and 16, then we have to introduce the step of carrying over to the tens value. If we have to solve for y, the process comes down to following steps. We can follow this process without knowing what the proof or amounts pertain to. Oftentimes, this is the information that most math instruction lays out. Teachers often give math assignments so that students can practice the process of solving the equations. It is rare that those equations are related to real-world application. This may leave students questioning the purpose of their assignments. It is easy for teachers to understand the need for learning value and process, but let's shift the perspective to our students. Why are they learning solution steps when calculators are available to do this for them? Why solve for unknown variables if there is no information about what the variable pertains to? Even students who are wired for math are bound to wonder if learning math for its own sake will impact them in a meaningful way. It is no secret that teachers have busy schedules. There is already so much subject matter to cover that planning for individual intelligence types may feel overwhelming at first. So how do we have students invest in the lessons that we already plan so meticulously? How do we solve the problem of students B, C, and D? First, let's return to our classroom. To begin, our class management system will get a slight overhaul. That starts with the daily schedule. We can schedule the first 10 to 15 minutes of class time for individual practice. For this time segment, worksheets are placed out in different stacks on a shelf or table. Each stack contains content that is suitable for different mastery levels, including remedial and advanced. For example, if we are teaching division, we would place worksheets for remedial division, followed by small quantity remainders, then elongated remainders, followed by fraction conversion. The students choose the worksheets based on their individual level of mastery and work on these alone or in small groups. The next time segment is optional. We can use this time to teach new material or let students work with each other to correct problems and ask questions. By the third week of the semester, we will have already trained our more advanced students as tutors who receive grade credit for helping their classmates. Our math teachers can now work one-on-one with students who are solving remedial level worksheets. They can also make assessments and use didactic materials that may provide further understanding. Struggling students eventually learn that this time segment can be effectively used to ask questions or impart instruction preferences for the type of lessons that works best for them. For the last portion of class, students move into their roles for their project assignment. This can be done in a few ways, but the basic framework goes like this. Just like in any place of business, institution, or movie shoot, people go where they are assigned of their own free will. If you are a data analyst, you go to a desk at your workplace and start your assigned process. If you are an actor, you go to a trailer or a place marked on stage. Teachers go to their classroom and perform related work using their own research and organization skills. The classroom project teaches your students to do the same. They will perform within roles as if they are within a work environment with an overall goal assigned to the entire class. At the beginning of your unit, make sure to choose a class project with multiple roles that can be assigned and worked on within small groups or individually. Such projects can be starting and growing a business, launching a satellite, creating a nutrition plan, or creating a new video game or an RPG. Whatever project you or your students choose, the class is then broken up into corresponding groups. Let's say your class wants to launch a satellite. You would offer the following jobs or roles for students to choose in their workday. Design for visual spatial, environmental studies for naturalistic students, budgeting and costs for logical, funding proposals for interpersonal and intrapersonal, planning and goal setting for verbal linguistic, marketing and data analysis for interpersonal and musical intelligences, building for body kinesthetic. The project can comprise our typical class session for 4 days during the school week. We can use the 5th day as a flex day that can be used for testing, Q&A sessions, or as time to model complex lessons. If you are modeling lessons on flex days, try to tie the lesson material in with the class project. But if your lesson on quadratic equations does not mesh with the overarching project, then place it in your worksheet stacks for independent practice until the lesson becomes relevant to a new class project later in the school year. The current project should only take up 1 or 2 units, so each project would take about 6 to 8 weeks to complete. In the meantime, use your flex days to determine if students are placed in the correct groups. If there are students who aren't performing well, consider group reassignment or using an assessment to more accurately determine the intelligence type. Don't be afraid to offer these projects on a smaller level. You may have students who work better within smaller groups or partners. They can launch mini businesses or plan their own personal budget or draft architectural spaces to meet assignment standards. We can even have students create individual portfolios where they plan for income, cost of living, taxes, and wealth planning. Congratulations! You are the one math teacher with lessons on how to do taxes. But let's say your hands are tied to a state-imposed curriculum. Remember to plan your lessons from mandatory textbooks around the use of real-world applications. Let the students research these questions during their project time and apply the textbook equations to some of the following scenarios. Use algebra to fly a plane. How much thrust do you need from an engine to compensate for wind drag and the weight of the plane? Want to become a millionaire? Let students research asset acquisition and the nature of accruing interest when your unit covers percentages. Stock market prediction can be helpful when covering quadratic equations. Calculus anyone. Let's not forget that Isaac Newton invented calculus to figure out the motion of the planets. Why not plan and build an accurate model of the solar system? How could the students go about that? There are so many ways to stimulate conversation about math and turn the teacher's attention away from the blackboard and onto the interests of the students. For K-5 teachers, math instruction is mainly focused on transitioning students from a concrete to an abstract understanding of lesson material. The classroom environment can be made to tailor to each student's developing level of understanding, and that starts with didactic materials. Didactic materials or manipulatives are games, towers, and other objects that can be physically handled by students for the purposes of education. These can be as simple as 5 real apples for practicing addition, but the most well-known are those crafted by Maria Montessori. Montessori materials for math include bead boards for multiplication and division, golden mats and stamp games for teaching place value, and shape trays for teaching fractions and geometry. Manipulatives like these are placed around the classroom in ascending order from remedial to advanced levels of mastery. Students then choose lessons based on their individual level of competency. Worksheets are also placed beside each material set to be filled out by students. Kids who can fill out the worksheets without using manipulatives can be assessed as having achieved abstract understanding of math concepts or are at least adept in logical intelligence. These are the students we hire as tutors to work with the rest of the class. Montessori materials can also be used when modeling lessons. For scheduling, use the first 10 minutes to present your new lessons. The next 10 can be set for students with tutors to work on individual assignments. Teachers can focus on working with remedial level students at this time. Remember, always provide remedial and advanced level material. These are the students who likely need extra help given their intelligence type or who are bored and require more of a challenge. Montessori's pink tower and cube puzzles are fantastic ways to have students correlate algebraic equations with physical objects. The pink tower can be used to teach scale and fractions. The cube puzzles teach binomial and trinomial equations. If you feel like adjustments need to be made for one or more students, Then you can perform an intelligence type quiz that determines a student's learning competencies. Special needs and learning disabilities should also be taken into consideration. For class projects at the elementary level, games can be implemented into the curriculum to encourage individual practice. We all know Monopoly is a great way to learn money management. Playing Monopoly can also provide practice with charting profit and loss as well as foundational math. Happy City and Dominoes are other games that teach addition, subtraction, and multiplication. After using these tips, we hope that all of your students can experience a new confidence with math. Every student can reach their full potential with the right support and with surprisingly small changes. Thank you for turning to this page of the instruction manual. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like more resources on how to make your class into a self-motivated community, you can visit our Patreon for more information. Click the link below and we'll see you on the next page.